Okay, well, let's begin with the word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we are so thankful for this morning, and we just ask that you can be with each person and the struggles they face, the health problems, and the difficulties that surround us each day. Help us to trust in you for guidance and direction. We pray that you can be in this study this morning. May your Holy Spirit guide and direct us in the time we have together. Help us to understand your word and to see clearly the things that are in our path, to guide our feet. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, good morning, everyone. So Dwight's going to have to leave a little bit early, so we're going to let Dwight sort of take over this first part of the study. Because you have a few points that you wanted to look at regarding the connection with Joseph and what we're seeing here in Judges. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Okay. What I was saying in the meeting yesterday, we have, as we're looking at this in Judges 5, and when we looked at the diagram that you'd put up yesterday, we were looking at the situation going through to Trump and Biden.
Okay.
Now, we were comparing Trump with Xerxes, according to this.
Right.
Because Xerxes was to be the king that was to be the, quote, far richer than they all, right?
Yep.
Now, if this was to track with what we know of history, then Biden would be the equivalent of Artabanus.
Right. So this placeholder.
And when you look at the history dealing with Artabanus, it is very likely that he was like a type of upper level official that may have killed Xerxes.
Yeah, there's uncertainty regarding that. So one is there's a lot of dependence on Herodotus, who's
Right.
not really very reliable. So, he makes up stuff. So we don't know exactly what happened there, but we do know there's an Artabanus in between. Just how much what power he had or so forth isn't really known.
Right. But he was over the Persian Empire for less than, not even 2 months, maybe just 1 month.
Yeah, just a very short period of time. Yeah.
Okay. Now, my question having to deal with Joseph, we know that Joseph came out of prison and was raised up to be second only to Pharaoh in Egypt.
Okay.
This occurred when Joseph was 30 years old.
Right. Yeah, he's sold into slavery when he's 17, and when he's 30, he stands before Pharaoh, 2 years after the dream of the butler and the baker.
Okay. So the dream of the butler and the baker took place when he was 28.
Yeah.
He stands before Pharaoh at 30. By the time that he is 37, the 7 good years have expired, but Joseph and his wife now have 2 sons.
Right, Manasseh and Ephraim.
Okay. Now, in the next 2 years, his brothers return twice to Egypt for food.
Yeah.
But we also have the situation, as we were looking at this, that Joseph, in that 2-year period, gathers up all the money that was found in Egypt and in the land of Canaan. So he takes complete control of the economy.
Yeah.
And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all of the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? The money faileth.
Yeah.
And Joseph makes an exchange.
Mm-hmm.
The money fails, and he says, give me your cattle.
Yeah.
What do we see as a symbol from the cattle?
I don't know.
Okay, to ask the question in this way. What would the cattle represent in the modern day?
All the means by which we can earn a living.
I would have to think that to be correct.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
she was saying that the cattle represents a mean by which we earn a living.
Okay.
So the economy fails. Joseph gathers up all the money. The people are saying we're starving. We're going to surrender our ability to make money. We're going to surrender our way of making a living. So you have step one, the money fails. Step two, the people come to Joseph for food to eat, and they exchange their method, their ability to make a living for food.
Mm-hmm.
So in this, they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. So if this is the event after, this is at the close of the first year of the bad year, of the bad 7.
Yeah. So it's definitely connected. So when you have a famine, I mean, you're going to have a year in which you're going to have, you're not going to have food, and they're going to buy food. So it has to be the second year, wouldn't it be that?
No, it's
No?
the close of the first.
Okay. Because they don't know how long the famine's going to be.
Joseph has already predicted it to be seven bad years. That's why he collected all of the grain.
But I'm saying the people don't necessarily believe that, do they?
You may have a point.
Yeah. Yeah, because they would have to be in dire straits before they'd give up their cattle.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe they do believe it. It's possible. I don't know.
what we know here is that this has occurred after the end of the 7 good years.
Yeah. So, maybe the 7 years of plenty, but, if they had known about it, wouldn't they store things themselves and prepare for the 7 years of famine?
I don't know how to approach that question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it says in verse 18, and this is my support for this being at the end of the first year.
Okay.
47:18. And when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year.
Oh, okay. So you're probably correct there then.
And said unto him, we will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not any or aught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands.
Yeah, so they sell themselves in the second year and their
Well,
land.
they sell themselves and their land. That's the point.
Right, yeah. Okay, that's correct. That's right. That's what happens.
So here is Joseph. On one side, sometime in that first year, he's dealing with his brothers, but he's also dealing with the people. Now, his brothers return that second year, and the people return that second year.
Okay, this is where I don't know if that's what happened. So, I mean, it is possible. I always thought it was in the same year. So they show up the first time, but he doesn't reveal himself to the brothers. You're saying.
Correct.
But they bow before him because they think
Agreed.
he's ruler. And there's supposed to be 22 years. I'm pretty sure Ellen White puts 22 years before that event, between when he had his two dreams and his brothers bow before him. But yeah, I mean, it sort of makes sense that it would be 1 year and then 2 years, but don't know. Anyway, go on. You could be correct.
So, wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land may not be desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. Then we have the verse that says, and for the people, he removed them to the cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Now, only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion, which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands.
Now, of course, these are Egyptian priests.
Correct. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part, 20%, unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. So of the seed, 20% was to be returned to Pharaoh. 80% was to remain in their hands.
Yeah.
Now, the situation that I was seeing and I was asking about here is we have specific events on this line with Joseph.
Yeah.
We know that the situation with Joseph is a type of a representation of a Sunday law.
Mm-hmm.
Can the events that are seen here be then applied in such a way that point to different events that would happen upon the big line of the Sunday law?
Okay, explain further.
We know that in order for this to occur with the Sunday law, that some group is going to take complete control of what's going on.
Right, and Egypt represents the world.
Correct. But it's going to be largely an economic control
Mm-hmm.
that at least here is being represented.
Yeah.
So is it possible that this with the Sunday law is going to be a type of an economic control that's going to come in? It's going to be pushed upon the world.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what we see happening. So I'd have to say, yeah, I mean, that's what we've already understood.
Okay.
Um, So when we look at the story of Joseph, we know that the story of Joseph we've paralleled with Samuel Snow,
Right.
and that it represents this movement in some way, on some level. Um, so we have different stories in the Bible, and they have different aspects. That is one thing we've never looked at it when it comes to a line, or we haven't addressed completely. So when we look at a line, there's a period of darkness, and then you have an increase of light, and then it addresses that specific darkness, right? Now, when you also have a story can only illustrate one aspect of a line, or of maybe not of a line, but one aspect of a particular truth, one facet of the overall picture. And in the story of Joseph, we see Egypt. In the story of the decrees, we see Persia, right?
Right.
In So in different stories, we can see different aspects or different kingdoms, different principles that are being addressed. And in the story of Joseph, it's primarily about the Sunday law. That is, it's a zoom into something, like this movement is, or a repeat of history. But it's addressing Egypt itself. And so maybe there's just certain details that it's bringing out that we would look at that apply to our line.
Well, I guess the point that I'm having to look at, here's Joseph. Now, we have addressed in the past that Joseph is a representation of a type of Christ, right?
Yeah.
If he is a representation of a type of Christ, does that also not mean that he is a representation of the 144,000?
Well, yeah, because they're typified by Christ too.
Therefore, when his brothers and his family come to Egypt for the corn, for the food, doesn't Joseph's family represent those that would be benefited from the message of the 144,000?
Yeah, well, they would have to.
Now, in this situation, elements of this story still have symbols, just as you were saying, of different items that we've looked at upon the big line and upon some of the other lines.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't quite have the detail that we're looking at with the Persians, with Xerxes, Darius, and the rest. But they do have elements. Joseph's time in prison could easily represent a time of darkness.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that with his time in prison, but I mean, you could create other lines within Joseph's line. Joseph's line is the fourth, right? Because you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as being the first, second, and third angel's message. So Joseph's line is a repeat of history. But you could create different lines within it because you can zoom into a waymark. But in Joseph's line, it's primarily the second angel's message, just as our line is. That's the focus of our line since 9/11, at least. So, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm listening.
Yeah, it's just we haven't really defined how we look at Joseph's line. I mean, we have the prediction before midnight. We have the dream of the butler and the baker in the 3 days. And that means you would have to mark that as July 18th as a symbol. And then he's going to have this dream fulfilled, or the butler and the baker's dream fulfilled 3 days later. But it's still going to be 2 years before he stands before Pharaoh. And then we would have to say, well, what is happening here? How do we place the years of plenty and famine? We normally have placed the Sunday law in connection with the famine. So
Technically, while we recognize that there's 2 years before Joseph stands before Pharaoh,
yeah,
if we were using an ordinal count, would there not be 3 years before Joseph stands before Pharaoh?
well, since it's from birthday to birthday, you could, I guess, count that's the first year, then there's the second year, which would be the birthday to next year, and then the third year. I guess you could. But it stands in the Bible as 2 years, not as 3 years.
I'm aware of what you're saying because that's the way scripture is written. The point that you've been making throughout is that we need to be aware of both ordinal and cardinal counts.
Yeah. But I think there's a reason why it's 2 years, is what I'm trying to say. Because in the story of Joseph, it's about the second angel's message. And even from the time of dealing with Jacob, which is, because Isaac's going to have twins, right? You have a lot of stories that are doubled, even if they have differences. But here you have the 2 dreams. You have the 2 dreams of the butler and the baker. You have the 2 years. There's a whole bunch of doublings of things. The 2 periods of 7 years. The 2 years again that are going to be mentioned in connection with how long the famine has been, with the 5 years remaining. So if you were going to say it's 3 years, why would you want it to be 3 years, the third year? What symbol is attached to it?
All I'm trying to do is to look at this in the manner that we have been considering other points.
Okay.
I don't have a direct answer there yet.
Okay. Yeah, I just think as a symbol, it's powerful as 2. And I wouldn't see a reason to make it the third year. In that we have the 3 days, that's the symbol of the prediction before midnight. And so we need to know why it's mentioned as 2 and what 2 means. But I understand your point that we could make it the 3rd year, but the Bible doesn't do that there, because I think the symbol of 2 is more powerful. So you're going to have to go. When are you leaving here?
I'll be leaving. I'm going to have to start getting ready now, but I'm going to look to leave just at about 7:30.
Okay. Okay, so my other computer is not connecting to the internet at all, so I have no idea why. I can't bring up the things that I wanted to bring up. Aran, could you possibly share the picture that Stephen had shared on WhatsApp?
Sure.
So if you can share that on the screen, and yeah, because I don't know why the one computer cannot connect and the other one can. It's the same internet. So
Just a minute.
yeah, okay. So a couple of things showed up in the WhatsApp this morning that I want to point to, and I want to address what we had discussed yesterday regarding the donkey and the elephant, the symbols of republicanism. So, so I'll start with somebody had shared from Prophetic Faith of Our Fathers the short biography that he has on Samuel Snow. It's just, the paragraph biography. And they had accidentally, however that happens, whether it's in the book itself or when they scanned it, it has Samuel Snow passing away in 1870. But we know that he passed away in 1890. So it is possible when they scanned it, the copy of the book that they had a unclear type, and it just scanned it as a 7, and nobody ever went to correct it. But I thought it was interesting because he's born in 1806, and we know he dies in 1890, but they had 1870. So 1806, that's 186. If we eliminate the 0, which we know is the number of cardinal days from the first day of the first month to the 10th day of the 7th month. So it represents July 18th. And we have that 186 years count from the first day of the first month in 1844 to April 5th, 2030, which also happens to be 187 prophetic years plus 20 prophetic months. And the fact that these line up to the day is pretty amazing. And then, so that means we have there in that biography and Prophetic Faith of Our Fathers on the E.G. White Estates and on the E.G. White disc, it says the same thing. We then have these symbols of 186 and 187 in connection with Samuel Snow. So we had looked at this donkey, the first time that is used as a symbol for the Democrats. It's Thomas Nast, who's writing in the Harper's Weekly. And he has a cartoon of a donkey kicking a dead lion. And that is in 1870. But the first time an elephant was used was in 1860 for the Republican Party. And that is in connection with Abraham Lincoln. So again, we have the 186 and 187 symbols connected with this donkey and this elephant. But one thing, detail that I didn't notice, but maybe someone else noticed it, is we have in this the cartoon kicking a dead lion. So in Stephen's line, as you can see here, he's having Trump lined up with Xerxes and Judah. So what's the symbol for Judah? Somebody needs to answer.
A lion, of course.
Yeah, so it's a lion, and would that means Trump would be symbolized by a lion here. And is Trump a dead lion with Biden or the Democrats? Are the Democrats kicking at Trump right now?
They have for the last 4 years.
Yeah, but now we'd have to call him a dead lion though at this point.
Correct.
Right. So I thought it was very interesting, very apt that he chose this dead lion. Now, in this case, he's not having the dead lion represent Trump or the Republicans. It has to do with I can't remember the person's name, Sutton, I think, if I remember correctly. I just can't see it right now. My computer won't even.
I think it's Stanton, the
Stanton.
Secretary of War.
Yeah. Stanton, Secretary of War. There you go. So I think that it's rather interesting that we have these symbols showing up in these years, 1870 and 1860, and that we have the 1806 and the 1870 date connected together. Now, so in dealing with this aspect of Issachar, we have, as we went through the diagram yesterday, I'm really frustrated with my computer. But anyway, I feel handicapped when I can't use both computers because I'm recording on this one. I don't know what happens if I try using this one to look at things while I'm recording on it. I think it would affect the recording, but I don't know. I've never tried it. So here, just hang on a second. I'm going to go grab another computer. It's just my other laptop. Now, what other things can we see here regarding this idea of the Democrats being this donkey? So what were the other things we discussed?
Well, if this is indeed the case, then of course the Democrats would be representational of Issachar.
Okay, right. And Issachar is?
Well, as a tribe, they're represented by the donkey, especially a donkey that collapses between two burdens.
Right. So we can see that. So we have this symbol for Issachar being the donkey. So that's another witness to this being the Democrats, right? That they're connected with this symbol. But also we have Islam connected with that as well.
Right.
And then, of course, we have this span of time, the 64,300 days from the Great Disappointment to Joe Biden, Biden being announced as the winner of the election. Now we had the election, of course, on the 3rd. So this is 4 days later that we have this occur. So we needed this delay in this announcement, just like we had with Trump. He wasn't announced until the day after, on the 9th, even though the election was on the 8th. Now, the fact this also lines up with Jeff's birthday, what's the significance of that?
Well, when we're looking at this with Jeff's birthday, we're looking at November 7th.
Mm-hmm.
So it's intriguing that his birthday there would line up with the day that Biden is announced as winner. of the presidential race.
Okay, now we have 69 years.
Right.
So what's 69 years?
$23 times 3.
Okay, that's correct. Okay, so Rand says Jeff gives the midnight cry in a sense. Okay, I need to know what he means by in a sense, because I think he does within a certain part of the line. But 69, isn't there 69 weeks and then the 70th week?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so he is a parallel. Yes. So we have that symbol there dealing with the 69 and then the 70. So what's the difference between the 69 and the 70? Why do we have 69 weeks, which is of course 62 or 7 weeks and 62 weeks together? But why do we have 69?
If we tie this back into the 2300 days, which is the symbol that I was looking at with 23 times 3, we're looking at a situation that here is the time of the word to go out to the well, technically first for the Jews, but now to those that would come into this with the movement at the very end, because it's a symbol leading up to the week of Christ, the week of his ministry to the end of the world.
Okay. So the week of Christ is going to be a chiastic structure. It's going to have the cross in the center, the Sunday law. And it starts with the baptism of Christ.
Right.
Now,
so is it possible that we have a type of baptism yet to address?
well, this movement, maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's, I think, what we would have to look at. Okay. Now, what about this number 64,300? So we haven't really addressed that number per se, other than to put it on a line.
I haven't looked at that very much.
Okay, so it's 178 years in prophetic years, right? So that is, if we take this number and we divide it by 360, we get 178. And 178 is the symbol of July 18th. And then it's 220 days extra. So 178 years and 220 days. So would that be significant? Can we tie that symbol?
Well, the 220, of course, should be significant to all of us.
Yeah, and 178 too, because we remember from in a 365 day year, if you have 187 and you subtract that from 365, you get 178, right? So it's the remainder after you take from the first day of the first month to the 10th day of the 7th month. You subtract that from 365, right? So Okay, so that's the significance there. It ties the symbol of July 18th to together with the full period of 365 days. So we have two symbols. We have a July 18 symbol, and then we have a 220 day symbol. So, I mean, if we went 220 days back from November 20th, 2020, I haven't looked at that yet, because I'm handicapped here at the moment without the one computer. So if we go to, so what that would be? It'd still be in the year 2020. So I'd probably be back here. I'm just doing this on the other computer. And then I have to go here. Oh, Rand could probably do this faster than me. So that's going to bring us to April 1st, or April 1st, 2020. Well, that'd be kind of apt.
Something interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
64,300.
Yeah.
If you just have the number 643,
Yeah.
it is the 117th prime number.
Okay.
So you have the number. You have November the 7th, and that number 643.
Okay. Very interesting. So when we just look at a number, so we're not taking the 64,300, we're just taking the 643. And we do this, we just look at it as a number because we take away the zeros, but it's the 117th prime number. And of course, 11/7 is the symbol for November 7th. So that's pretty interesting. Did you figure that out earlier or just now?
No, just there now.
Okay. Now, when did you show up, Stephen? Because I can't see when they show up or anything like that.
Okay, I came in about 15 minutes late.
What's that?
I've been listening for maybe about half an hour.
Okay, so you've been here so with that discussion regarding Judah being the lion and the donkey kicking the lion in Nast's cartoon, did you have any thoughts on that?
To me, it sort of connects with that lion and the donkey theme that we have in 977 BC.
Yes.
Although that,
yeah. So looking at 977, so we know that we have the disobedient prophet, right? Which is how we have labeled him, in that he was supposed to return. Was it the same way he came, or was it a different way? I can't remember how that went.
No, a different way.
A different way. And he wasn't supposed to stop anywhere, right? But he gets called in by this other prophet to stay with him. And then how does it go? Can somebody just recount the story? So he's going to go see Josiah, or not Josiah, Jeroboam, and he's going to give the prophecy of Josiah. And then he's going to get sidetracked.
Yeah, so Jeroboam, he invites him to stay.
Right.
But he's going to give him food and riches, whatever. But he says, no, I'm just to go on. And he does go on.
Yeah.
But then he stops by like a palm tree or something, like an oak, I can't remember. And then this here other prophet approaches him and says, Lord, God's told me something different. You know, that you're to to eat with me or whatever. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But eventually he does eat with him. And then when he's after the meal, whatever, the prophet then announces that you're disobedient and you shouldn't have listened to me, basically.
Yeah. Okay. And then who is he go where what is this that's gonna happen? Who's gonna die?
Yeah, so he leaves that house and then a lion meets him on the way. So I think he's on a donkey. So that the lion attacks him, but it leaves the donkey alone.
Okay.
So the lion's alive. It's not a dead lion.
Okay, the lion's
It's a,
alive. Okay, so yeah, so I'm trying to remember how that happens. So is the donkey dead or what's happening? I can't see anything right now, so it's an O.
the donkey's alive.
First Kings chapter 13. So I'm just trying to get my other computer working.
It says the ass stood by the lion, stood by the carcass, and the lion also stood by the carcass.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm gonna go there here.
So if the lion is Judah,
Yeah,
could that represent Donald Trump?
yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out how we would look at that story now. Okay, so
This story gives me, as Jeff would say, heartburn, because it looks like the Lord sent a decoy to deceive him, or an infiltrator, some trickster. Why, Lord, did you allow this to happen?
yeah, now who would be the trickster here? Well, who's the deceptive prophet?
Fauci, people like him,
No,
pharmaceutical companies.
no,
Yes, yes.
not in this context.
You don't think so?
No.
Enlighten us, Theodore.
Okay, well, wouldn't this have to do with this movement?
Oh, well, then it would be Parminder and Tess and people like that. And our own hearts. I mean, our own hearts are so deceptive too. I mean, I got carried away by some of their garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would think that that's how we would, because I've struggled with this story for quite a while in this movement, trying to figure out what this is. And you think I'd know it better. But as we learn more, more details really come out. So now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel. So I'm going to do this. So now I can share another screen. So you can take that down there if you want to, Ran. And I think I can do this now. Oh, what's this doing? Here it is. Yeah, it's just hard when I can't share a screen. So here's the Bible. So now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel. So the significance of Bethel, we know that this is the house of God, right?
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done in that day in Bethel, and the words which he had spoken unto the king, they told also to their father. And their father said unto them, What way went he? For his sons had seen what way the man of God went, which came from Judah. And he said unto his sons, Saddle me the ass. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak. Now, this oak tree, what would this be? What is this oak tree? Why is he under an oak?
I know the oak tree is like strength. It spreads out. It's a huge tree and very, very strong. But in witchcraft, an oak tree means a lot to them. I read up on that once. I don't recall it all, but they worship like the Druid, for example. I mean, I'm of the Druid line, but I really haven't studied that deeply into it.
Okay, well, I'm more concerned about
I
what the
think
Bible-
Drew means oak, actually.
So, because we have this as a symbol in the Bible. So the word oak, or a strong tree, an elm tree, a teal tree, a terebinth is sometimes what it's referred to, whatever that is particularly. So it says here, from the same as 193, properly strength, hence anything strong, specifically a chief, politically also a ram from his strength, a plaster as a strong support, an oak or other strong tree. Right? So
We had we had looked at the oak 2019. I think it's like Potsdam is called beneath the oaks or something like that. We had the Potsdam Declaration.
okay, so with
Yeah,
declaration,
the Potsdam.
so Potsdam Declaration is connected to the oak.
I think that's what Potsdam means.
Oh, okay, so Potsdam means an oak. Okay.
It's like between the oaks or beneath the oak.
Okay, because we were connecting this somewhat with Nashville, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We tied in Rachel oaks as well.
Yeah. So
The Sabbath coming in there connected with her.
okay, so can we say that this movement had been sidetracked by the Nashville prediction? So we're just examining this, because I mean, this was the accusation. This was, we went off the path. We made this prediction regarding Nashville, and that's because we were deceived. And of course, the deceiver would be me in this case. And looks like my my other computer's reconnecting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so my laptop is disconnected. For some reason, this laptop keeps going, but the other ones are having trouble with the internet. Okay, so so what would this mean? Can we in some ways say that we were deceived, but we would have to figure in what way we were deceived by the Nashville prediction? Because we have two different predictions that apparently failed: the Trump prediction and the Nashville prediction, right?
How did Joseph's brothers view his prediction regarding them bowing down to him?
Okay, what do you mean? How did they predict? I mean,
The
they
sun,
didn't
the
either.
sun, the moon, and the stars would bow down to, and the sheaves would bow down to him.
Right. Yeah. Well, the idea was, are we going to bow down to you? I mean, they just mocked it.
Okay, so my question here is, since we were very focused on the 2 years,
Yeah.
is it possible that this is 2 years ordinal or the 3 years cardinal?
Yeah,
That,
round. But anyway.
okay, so I've got it backwards. I apologize.
Yeah.
Is it possible that this is another symbol that can be tied back into what we're talking about July 18th?
Well, yeah. Whoops. Sorry about that. I had the other audio on there. So, okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again from here. Okay, can you explain that further? I know you got to leave pretty soon.
Yeah, I got to get rolling now.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe we'll come back to that tomorrow
That's fine.
because I don't fully understand what it is you're getting at, so I can't elaborate on it. Okay, so here we have this deception that occurs. Can we say that this movement was deceived? And then also, was this movement disobedient?
Well, you have in Millerite history,
Yeah,
first disappointment was considered as a liar, if we're going to connect it to Habakkuk chapter 2.
yeah.
So in the sense that it was like a deception that way.
Okay.
Because Nashville is going to happen, but there's just a tarrying to it.
There's a tarrying time. Yeah. But was this movement disobedient in some way? Does this movement have a disobedience? Because we have this disobedient prophet. I mean, he's going to get sidetracked by a message, and so we would have to look at, who's proclaiming the prophecy of Josiah, and is the prophecy of Josiah July 18th?
Well, it is connected, I believe.
Yeah. Because it's the prophecy of Josiah is July 18th. I mean, without Ezekiel's prophecy, understanding Ezekiel's prophecy and the prophecy of Josiah, and its connection to the prophecy of Josiah Litch, which happened in 2016. Without that understanding, we don't have July 18th. So July 18th is wrought out of the understanding of this structure, and also the story of Joseph. There's other things that connect as well, story of Ezra, but it's primarily this understanding of Josiah Litch's prophecy and the connection with the prophecy of Josiah, because we wouldn't have had that 391.5 on October 13th, even if I'd counted that it was 391 and a half days. It wouldn't have meant anything without the connection to Ezekiel. So we had all of this groundwork being laid. But now we have to say, so we gave a message. That message would have to be correct, right? Isn't the message that's being given on July 18th, if it's the prophecy of Josiah, is it fulfilled?
Not to the date that we predicted.
Well, the prophecy of Josiah is fulfilled for that time, right? I mean, Josiah is going to come and fulfill the prophecy as was predicted by this disobedient prophet. But Ezekiel, right? So, but Ezekiel's going to pick this up, and he's going to use the time from the giving of the prophecy to its fulfillment to start a period of 390 years and 40 years. And then he's going to be predicting, of course, the siege, but indirectly the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 and the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, specifically the temple being destroyed on the 10th day of the 5th month in both of those years. So the prophecy of Josiah is correct. So if we look at this as dealing with our movement gives a correct prophecy. But then there's a disobedience that follows, right? That is, it's going to get sidetracked. And the question is, when does this occur and how would we apply it? see, I don't think that we could have understood this back in 2018 or 19 or even 2020. Maybe by the end of 2020, we could have understood it. But we can see that this disobedience has this connection. So let's read this again. And just going to get rid of the numbers here. Okay, let's do this here. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel, the words which he had spoken unto the king. They told also to their father. And their father said unto them, what way went he? For his sons had seen what way the man of God went, which came from Judah. And he said unto his sons, saddle me an ass. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak. And he said unto him, art thou the man of God that camest from Judah? And he said, I am. Then he said unto him, come home with me and eat bread. So eating bread would represent what?
Message.
A message of some sort. So some kind of study. And he said, I may not return with thee, nor go in with thee. Neither will I eat bread, nor drink water with thee in this place. For it was said to me by the word of the Lord, thou shalt eat no bread, nor drink water there, nor turn again to go by the way that thou camest. And he said unto him, I am a prophet also, as thou art. And an angel spake unto me by the word of the Lord, saying, bring him back with thee into thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him. So he went back with him, and he did eat bread in his house and drank water. And it came to pass, as they sat at the table, that the word of the Lord came unto the prophet that brought him back. And he cried unto the man of God that came from Judah, saying, thus saith the Lord, forasmuch as thou hast disobeyed the mouth of the Lord, and hast not kept the commandment which the Lord thy God commanded thee, but camest back, and hast eaten bread and drunk water in the place, of which the Lord did say to thee, eat no bread and drink no water, thy carcass shall not come unto the sepulchre of thy fathers. And it came to pass, after he had eaten bread and after he had drunk, that he saddled for him the ass, to wit, for the prophet whom he had brought back. And when he was gone, a lion met him by the way and slew him, and the carcass was cast in the way, and the ass stood by it. The lion also stood by the carcass. So who is here that is killed? Anybody?
The prophet?
Okay, so the disobedient prophet is killed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So has the person that gave this message died? Has the movement, how do we apply this? Who is dead and why?
The core of FFA as we know it.
Okay, so FFA is dead. Okay, so who was deceived? Now, remember, we in understanding Judges, even though Parminder's brought out of the way in 2019, he gets his own movement. Has his teaching or his deception still infected the movement?
Yes, yes, it has.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. So the December 6th declaration is just a reiteration of Parminder's arguments against July 18th, right? And it's the same attack on the symbolism and the chronology that we saw by Parminder. I mean, basically, they're just reiterating his arguments. So it has to be of the same spirit. And does that still exist within this movement even after December 6, 2020?
I'd have to say yes to that.
Yeah, okay. Now, I'm just looking at the chat here. So why do you bring up the 46,500 and the 465? I mean, we know that that's part of our understanding of things, but you're bringing this up here in the chat for a reason. Okay, so this is Parminder's persecution. Okay. Now, I can't bring up the diagram, but can you remember exactly where we start this Parminder's persecution? Where does this come from?
I just know that the end of the 465 wasn't it December 6th?
Right. So it ends on December 6th. So you could probably figure out where it started. So if I can find this.
So it started on August 29th of 2019.
Right. So we counted 46,500. That went somewhere. I can't remember where that was spanning. But then we have the 465 days that go from Parminder's rebellion to December 6, 2020. The 465 days. Right? Which is pretty profound in and of itself. I'm trying to start my other computer so I can look at these documents. Okay. So sometimes, we could say, well, why is Theodore having these troubles with his computer? Well, I think the reason is it's actually directed us into something that we weren't really going to study out of necessity, and that's this chapter here. So now we have a lion. And it's going to kill him. Yeah, so it's November 4th, 1888. That's where it is. So you have that 46,500 days. And that goes to August 29th, 2019.
I think it was last day of the 1888 conference to the ordination of Parminder, which would be February 27.
Right. So it goes to his ordination. And then we have a 100th of that, the 465 days that span between the rebellion and the December 6th declaration. Okay, so that's how it goes. And of course, the importance there is that we can see that there's this connection between Parminder and what happened on December 6, 2020. Now, if we have this lion, well, who's the lion that is going to slay the disobedient prophet? So how are we going to make an application of this? Okay, so the question is, does it have to do with Trump? Because we have this lion that's in connection with this donkey. And we have, so we
Well,
have,
on the external, I suppose, sorry, on the external, I suppose it could, but I mean, if you're looking at the internal, we should go with that.
yeah, I know. So it's an internal, but we have these symbols outside of us that affect this movement. Trump affects this movement. Islam affects this movement. And in this case, we could say that the ass could represent um, something, right? Either Islam, but it also can represent the Democrats. But in this case, we have the disobedient prophet is killed. His ass stays there, and the lion stays there. So you got this ass and this lion standing by this carcass, which we say is FFA. Is this a proper way to look at it? And how would we understand then the ass and the lion? Do they symbolize something in this movement? Does the ass symbolize the prophecy of Islam, and the lion symbolize the Trump prophecy? Is that how we should look at it?
Yes, I think so. But then I was also thinking, okay, now we have a carcass. Well, the people that have gone out and done their own thing and followed, Bryant and Lambert, they're
Yeah.
spiritually dead. They've already been slain by Satan. And ultimately, if they don't repent, they're going to be slain by God. So it could be that too.
Okay, but we know this is the disobedient prophet. He's the one who gives the prophecy of Josiah, which we say is July 18th. And FFA did give that message. And then he's going to ride on this ass, this donkey, right? It's going to be killed by a lion. And we can see that the lion and the ass symbolize the lion symbolizing the Trump prophecy, and the ass symbolizing the Islam, the July 18th prediction specifically, but dealing with Islam. So when we look at Trump and when we look at July 18th, those predictions failed on the surface. The end of FFA occurs. But now we're going to have this prophet that had deceived him. So this is some kind of a message. And so we don't know, who this prophet is. We've defined it here having to do with the message of Parminder. Now, Parminder would argue that I'm the disobedient prophet, that I'm the one who deceived people, though he wouldn't make that application because he wouldn't agree with anything that we're doing here in this study. But I mean, if he were to, he would have to label me as the disobedient or as the prophet that deceived FFA. But that wouldn't make sense in the context here of how we're understanding this. But we have some prophet that is deceiving. And it says, when the prophet that brought him back from the way heard thereof, he said, it is the man of God who was disobedient unto the word of the Lord. Therefore the Lord hath delivered him unto the lion which hath torn him and slain him according to the word of the Lord which he spake unto him. Now, could we see, though, that this is what Parminder is saying? That FFA was disobedient. Is the prophet here putting blame upon himself when he hears about this? Who's he blaming? Who's being blamed here?
Wouldn't it be the disobedient prophet?
Yeah, so he's blaming FFA, isn't he? The
Was
one,
FAA a disobedient prophet?
no,
But it is to the false prophet.
right.
This is really getting quite complex. Okay, FFA, you say, gave the 718 cry. And then it seems to me that they reneged on it. So where do we go from there?
Okay, well, I wouldn't say it
They had
reneged.
it right at first and then they reneged on it. So they are disobedient at that point.
Okay,
Well,
right.
would,
So, right.
wouldn't FFA be the one that's been deceived by the disobedient prophet?
Yeah. FFA's been deceived and FFA is going to die. But now you have the disobedient prophet and, or not the prophet that did the deception. He's going to blame FFA, right? He's not going to
That's the way I got it.
He's not blaming himself, is he?
Not he's taking the blame. He's pushing it out. He's got three fingers pointing back to himself, in other words.
Right. So this would actually describe those who still sympathize with Parminder. Do we still have those people who look at FFA and say, well, he got caught up in this chronology. Jeff got caught up in this chronology.
Jeff isn't a socialist and he's not woke like us, so he's dead. Yeah, and of course you can throw in the chronology too. The time setting.
Yeah. So there is a mistake. Even those there are some people in this movement. So there are people in this movement who agree with the December 6th declaration. They're not necessarily making themselves known to everyone, but I know that they exist. And so we have this element that is ignoring the truth. That is, they want to go back to something else. But instead of joining with those who wrote the December 6th declaration in an open way, they attack the message covertly within the movement itself. And I don't know if other people have seen this or recognize it, but I believe that that's what's occurring. That is, there are people who, and they may sometimes give lip service to July 18th, and even be supportive of the idea that we can reinterpret this prophecy so that we can somehow accept the the idea that Trump has to be reelected in order to vindicate this message of Trump, right? But yet, when this fails, when Trump does not get reelected, where are they going to stand? Do you understand what the point that I'm trying to make? It's hard for
Yes,
me to make the
I
point.
understand.
Okay, right. So we're going to see this testimony. We have this ass and this lion that basically are standing by this disobedient prophet. But is the lion eating him?
No, he's not. At least it's not. It doesn't say that he was.
Right. So he's not. He's not going to eat him or the ass. Right. He's by this carcass. So and there's this ass there, and the lion stood by the carcass. So why is this happening? What is this marking?
It's definitely a symbolic representation. I mean, it has all the characteristics of that. The lion not eating that carcass Maybe that's because he knows it's poison. I don't know.
Well, no, that's not why. But
But ain't they both dead?
okay, so when we go here, so the deceptive prophet, he's gonna saddle an ass, and he's going to go back to where this prophet was killed. So he went and found his carcass cast in the way, and the ass and the lion standing by the carcass. The lion had not eaten the carcass, nor torn the ass. And the prophet took up the carcass of the man of God, and laid it upon the ass, and brought it back. And the old prophet came to the city to mourn and to bury him. And he laid his carcass in his own grave. And they mourned over him, saying, Alas, my brother. And it came to pass, after he had buried him, that he spake to his son, saying, When I am dead, then bury me in the sepulchre wherein the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the saying which he cried of the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel, and against the houses of the high places which are in the cities of Samaria, shall surely come to pass. After this thing, Jeroboam returned not from his evil way, but made again the lowest of the people priests. So that's just going to go back into the story of Jeroboam. So I don't know if I fully understand this story yet. I don't know if I fully understand who these people completely represent, but it appears that the one who had deceived the prophet, the disobedient prophet, is somehow still involved. So I don't know how we would take that. Okay, Jeroboam was like Micah in, I don't know what JUS 17 to 19 is. What's JUS?
It's yet another typo. I'm a champion of typos. It's Judges 17 to 19, because he was making priests of the lowest order, just, arbitrarily seeking so-and-so that would be advantageous to himself. It says Jeroboam did the same thing, made again of the lowest of the people, priests of the high places.
Okay,
So I saw the similarity.
Yeah, so we know that Jeroboam represents the Sunday law, the mixture of church and state, as well. FFA went back to Samaria to be buried after deleting the July 18 message. Okay. That might make sense. So is there then a sympathy with Parminder's movement in some way with the death of FFA? Maybe that's the way that we would look at that. Would Parminder's movement see FFA as dead and this whole message is dead? And that those that are sympathetic with Parminder, that the carcass of FFA, so to speak, has gone back to Samaria? Is that how we would understand it? I mean, it's pretty interesting.
Yes, that's one way. Yes, that's one way you can look at it. I mean, this is the most convoluted, deep thing. So many layers.
Well, yeah, there's definitely layers, but we are meant to understand it. So there's something going on that we don't fully grasp. So I mean, and as I said, I've looked at this, in the past, And I was saying, well, how does this apply? I mean, and, you know, especially even before July 18th. I mean, I had no idea to understand this. No way to understand it. But we can see that there's this kind of odd way in which we look at this story. Because on the one hand, I mean, we can look at this person who deceived the disobedient prophet, still believes that this prophecy is going to be fulfilled. So that doesn't really make much sense in the context of what we're trying to understand here. But FFA is dead. So where did the deception happen specifically? You know, that's what I don't really know how to frame the whole thing.
I think that part of it may not have been fulfilled yet, and that's part of our problem. And we don't have somebody in this movement having a vision and then all is made clear, unfortunately, at least not yet.
Yeah, so maybe we can't even understand this yet completely. Okay, so I don't have the answer that I would like. But anyway, our time is up. So we've covered a lot of things. And we're going to have to come back to this tomorrow. And so maybe if we give it some thought and prayer, maybe we can sort of put this into order. But
Theodore,
yep.
could you take this along with where Zedekiah and Jeremiah, when he was talking to Jeremiah about not taking the message to the priest because he was afraid that they were going to hurt Zedekiah. You know that story.
I'm not sure if I know which story you're talking about. We can look at that tomorrow, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, well, let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we are so thankful for the study this morning, for the way that you direct us. And we ask, Lord, that we can continue to understand your word, that we can study, and that you can correct us in any errors we may have in our understanding. Please be with each one, be with this movement. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.